Hola, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you great.
I cannot hear you. Hold on.
Oh, let me check my side. And you're in Mexico, yeah?
Yeah, look at my jungle.
Whoa, nice. That's great. The performance looked amazing. I saw the stills on
Oh, thank you.
Instagram a few days ago. That looked really cool.
Yeah, both like the one with electronic music was really good. And also I did a workshop and I had my students perform. They were really good.
Oh, nice. So today I was curious to talk to you because as the World Listening Project and in the World Listening Day for this year, we've been thinking a lot about alternate ways of listening, other ways of listening. And
Uh,
when I had that chance to see your presentation, you spoke about this idea of prosopopea.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
over the word prosopopea, um, and even in your performances, the way that you bring an energy out of objects and the way that you bring a story out of objects fits really sort of nicely with this idea of alternate ways of listening. So I was wondering if you could just share a little bit about that process and how the performance of objects becomes a narrative element within the.
Well, there's different parts to it. There's one that is a part of an of like how you call it like Native American animism.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's that part, no? And I research about it, and I know like that there's that side of for healing. You make a sonic device out of what is causing the damage, or what surrounds the person that is causing the damage. You kind of make the object vibrate with sound, and that vibration transmits to the person because of their personal relationship with the object. With the object, no,
Okay. Yeah.
that's number one. Then number two is like, I don't know if you're recording this, but yeah, you're recording, right?
Yeah.
The other is the idea of reciprocity in a Native American culture.
Mhm.
That it seems like the problem that we have in the West is that we see things as other than ourselves instead of part of our ecosystem and our world.
Mhm.
We see the wood as something to use and explode. We see the animals something to kill, and we don't have a reciprocal relationship with things. No,
Yeah.
there's this guy, David Abram, that I've been reading a lot.
Mm.
In this book called "Becoming Animal," and he has an exercise, or he describes like start touching your own texture of your fingers first and feel yourself, and then start touching surfaces around the room. And he says that not only you're touching the surface and you're feeling the surface, but the surface is feeling you. So it's this reciprocity, no? We hear he talks a little bit about the the sound that the, the trees make, no? And he say that scientists tell him, no, it's not the tree that is making sound, it's the wind that is going through the tree. And he said, no, the tree is making sound. It's making a sound, no?
Yeah.
So is this very important thing, no? If you're Native American and you want to kill an animal, you say, I'm gonna kill you and I'm gonna eat you because I need you, but I promise that I'm gonna do the best to be myself if I kill you, so that we have a communion in this action. So that's the same with the objects of the border, no? Or the object, personal objects, no? You have a personal relationship with things that surround you. He also talks about like silence, like 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 there's no such thing as silence, no? As
Right.
there is no such thing as void space, no?
Mm.
Everything, what we see as void space, there's thousands of molecules that connect us to something. So when you make sound, you're pushing the molecules, and the molecules come back. Literally, they wave back and forth.
Mm.
So that's another reciprocal relationship. And that goes as deep as like when you curse someone or when you give a course to someone,
Mhm.
it returns back and it changes the whole world. So any action that you do is going to change, is going to be a chain reaction that is going to change everything. Well, that's one. And the other one is, the other two is Alejandro Jodorowsky, psychomagic, that he uses a lot of objects to cure stuff. You know that, no?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
he took that from Doña Pachita, that was a Mexican sorcerer.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I stayed in her apartment, in the set of apartments where she lived just last week.
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah. And Juan Jodorowsky got together with Breton and with everybody. It's like a beautiful place. If you ever come to Mexico City, that's the place to stay. It's an Airbnb. So that's that. And then there's Jungian psychology, no?
Mhm.
For Jungian psychology, when you dream, everything in your dream is you. If you dream a house, is you. If you dream a lamp, is you. So everything is you. So the objects talk. And I gave a performance art class to my students in which I showed them a photograph of like, I mean, like a bunch of friends having dinner somewhere, no? And I said, you can be anything in the room and do the narrative of what is happening being anywhere in the room, you know? And it becomes really interesting when people, it's like the lamp, you know?
Yeah.
Because, and I tell them to speak in first person, no? So I tell them, you are the lamp. What does the lamp say? And he says, the lamp says, I haven't been turned on in a long time. And then the lamp talks to the cat, to the eye of the cat. And the eye of the cat says, I'm only an eye of a cat, but I can see you, lamp. And I put them like different, like objects. And I think it's a very good exercise of to explore the unconscious. And the same as what happened with my border canto sonic objects or anything that I use like of personal object. It's very interesting because I tell contemporary classical musicians, you know, I used to make all of this music like Stockhausen and like with noise and everything. And everybody told me, oh, it's so hard to understand. But I play the same music with the objects and they understand. They say, wow, I saw the eagles. And I said,
The
so
narrative
it's
comes
really,
through the physical manifestation of that object's place. Yeah.
and that goes into the third thing, no?
Yeah.
The internet. In
Mm.
the internet, everything is out of context.
Right.
And if you have a context, you're not going to find what's the truth and what are lies or what is real or what is not real.
Mm-hmm.
Like my friend Cristobal called it, like the internet could be like the Tower of Babel.
Oh, interesting.
So I quote something that someone told me years ago from Stockhausen that says a tennis shoe that you find in the moon is not the same tennis, is not the same tennis shoe you find in the trash.
Hmm.
So it's framing, no context. And context has a lot to do with reciprocal relationships, closing the cycle that I told you.
Yeah.
You don't have, if you don't have context, you cannot listen to anything. And as a matter of fact, I'm writing an article I'm rewriting an article that was for a book on Pierre Schaeffer. You know Pierre Schaeffer, of course,
Oh
no?
yeah. Yeah.
And I'm talking about his objective listening. You know his objective listening. You know?
Yeah.
That says that every sound, once the tape recorder is invented, every sound has to be considered outside of its context and for the value of the sound only.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The idea of
And
this.
I'm comparing that with a Mesoamerican thing that you cannot separate the sound from the object that emits the sound, because it's like when they say, like Native Americans, when you take a photograph, you're separating the subject from the body and the soul and the person.
Mm.
So for a Native American, a photograph is not the person. It's not, has nothing to do with the person. So that's basically just in a nutshell what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. This idea of reciprocity and context really sounds like it even plays into perception, in that you were talking about the idea of like there's no void, there's no nothing, there's no silence. And so often when we think that there is, it's because we haven't considered that there's more there than what we are able to perceive or experience. And I think that is a bit of this idea of how we relate to nature, how we relate to designed objects, which your exercise that you described of taking on the persona of an object in the scene is so fascinating for
Thank
some of
you.
those
I
reasons.
love to do it, and it's fun too.
Yeah.
It's fun to do.
Yep. And it allows for, this reconsideration of how we've surrounded ourselves with things. Because I think part of what your work speaks to, or at least part of what I took from your work, is that we spend a lot of time separating ourselves in Western culture from nature and also from each other. When
From each other,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. So the way that we developed housing and the way that we've started to develop neighborhoods and subdivisions and things like that. Um, so yeah, so
Yeah, I
there.
would go as far as to say that all the problems we have, the politics problems, the racial problems, the religious problems, and even the gender problems would have to do with a lack of perception of the other and the others and what surrounds us. It's like objectifying everything that is around us.
Mm,
Objectification is a big problem in Western civilization and in capitalism. We see everything as objects, as usable objects, even humans.
mhm. Yeah, humans and nature. We struggle to not see nature as a
Yeah.
resource for extraction. Or, like you mentioned earlier, we go the other way, where we think nature needs to be devoid of humans in
Mhm.
order for it to be somehow preserved. Whereas if we look at indigenous cultures from around the world, before all of these sort of larger revolution, industrial revolution, and some of these other like agricultural revolutions, people were really good at living with, not off of, the land and the resources.
Exactly. Exactly. And it has to do with the ego also, no?
Oh, sure.
With a lot of things.
Yep. Which gets into those Jungian sort of like
Yeah, yes.
patterns and the archetypes and the relationships that we have with each other. Um, and that's what I
It's
think.
like there would be no problems only with we would listen, see, and feel, no?
Mhm,
And there's like when I was telling you the exercise of the textures,
mhm,
I've been hearing different programs about sound. I think there was one in NPR that was fantastic. And if they were comparing, they say like the closest thing to listening is touch, because literally the sound is touching, like your skin is rubbing to produce the electric current.
hmm. So
And
so
the sound is
physically,
touching you. The sound touches you.
yeah. Yeah, which happens so frequently, especially with frequencies that are outside of our hearing range.
Yes.
There.
In the low, you feel it in the body, like truly.
Mhm. Yep. Which also gets into touch, but could also get into emotion. Like the
Yes.
embodiment of emotion and reactions all start to tie in to that same sort of idea of where do you feel particular emotions? Where do um, different sort of embodied listening experiences originate? Where do they um, grow to? Where do they expand to?
And not only where, but what do we listen? Like what do we decide to listen to?
Mm, mhm.
It's up to us to decide what we listen to, but we're not listening to the right things.
Yeah. What are some things that you think we should be listening to more if we were to think of like the global sort of like this idea of like World Listening Day, for example? Like,
Well, one thing is listen to each other, because it's like as Paulino Oliveros used to say, no, listening is not finished, is not waiting for the other person to finish talking to say what you have to say.
yeah.
And then, well, everything, no? It's like if like you do sound walks and all of this stuff. If you open your ears, you start listening to everything. I think that if we listen carefully to everything, we wouldn't have any problems.
Mm-hmm.
because it goes with your intuition and your listening. And actually, if you would perfectly listening and perfectly touching and perfectly looking and perfectly walking, you wouldn't even have like accidents. You wouldn't trip over things. Or
Mhm.
we're always like distracted, no?
Yeah, yeah. If we were more present, or if we were, yeah, taking more time to be intentional.
It's presence too, like we're not present.
Yeah,
Like we're like ghosts in the
yeah.
world. We're not connected. We're like our ghosts moving around. We become
Well,
ghosts.
that's a good analog because not
Yeah.
only are we like mentally ghosts, we now have a generation that invented this term ghosting, which means to sort of like
There you go. Wow, that's really good. Yeah. Oh
ignore.
man, think about ghosts. You just gave me the
Ah,
because Zen, my friend Zen, that you know her, and
yes.
I used to have this friend Travis that died at the ghost town, at the ghost town thing, the ghost ship in
Oh,
Oakland in
yeah.
the fire.
Oh
And
no.
he was like so much into ghosts and sound.
Yeah.
It's like police saying, no, we're just spirits in the material world.
A good pop song reference there. Yeah. But yeah, like mentally, the all of our you mentioned the internet, like in thinking of us as ghosts, as sort of only ephemerally involved in any particular thing, we're also like time travelers in that we have these gadgets that can move us around. We can sort of like portal jump through communications immediately. We have like you and I were talking on this Zoom environment, and one of the things that I felt, especially at the height of lockdown, was moving from one Zoom call to another with almost no time in between and having to mentally shift like now I'm in professor mode, now I'm in artist mode, now I'm in researcher mode. And it was just I had 30 seconds to adjust and then open the next didn't even have the ability to like move through a different threshold or embody a different space because it was all happening in one place. So there's this like ephemerality that starts to circle around a lot of these things.
Yeah, yes, I agree. Like, what are we and where are we and when are we what we are, no?
Yeah. Yep. And that's where listening can become so crucial.
And what are we, no? What are we doing here? Like, but the other one, I was thinking of this essay that I did with Josh Kuhn for a book that is from an exhibit that was called When Home Doesn't Let You Stay, that is about immigration. It was done about from ICA, but we did a talk about life and death and sound. And one particularity of that essay, I can send it to you, is that we're talking about migration, the migrants, what do they hear, and how is the journey, listening to the journey, and how the sounds produced by the border patrol or whatever mean something different than to everybody, or the sounds of their walking or everything. But also we were comparing to the first purpose of vinyls, of records, that I don't know if you know it, but they say that the first records were made to preserve the voice of the loved ones, of your loved ones.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
And there's this thing about sound that whatever makes sound is because it's vibrating, and whatever is vibrating is alive.
Huh.
So there's the connection of, like, sometimes they say that when you hear the voice of your loved ones recorded, it's more important than a video or a photograph.
Hmm.
It has more presence.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely feel that. Like thinking of like a recording that I have of my grandparents who have passed away. When I have it on a little thing and I listen to it every once in a while, and it gives me stronger memories. Now that you're mentioning it, that gives me stronger memories than the trove of photographs that I have, which are also good. But the photographs give me a snapshot. And now I don't remember the experience. I remember that photograph, which is two very different things. But with this recording that I have, I'm very much remembering more about their personalities and things like that. Yeah,
You
that's
got it. You hit it right in the nail.
yeah. It's giving tingles just thinking about it because I hadn't really processed that before you just mentioned it. Huh. But also the idea that the vibration is what gives something life, because we do have a bit of trouble sort of putting our finger on or agreeing on an idea of what is alive, or when do we say something is living. And it's one of the questions where, we're also trying to ask is, what does it mean to listen as another living being within, the space of like the various soundscapes both locally and globally.
Yes. Yes. Talking about the soundscape, and it's also going back to the what you want to listen to, know what you decide to listen to. It's that thing of the cocktail party effect, no?
Yeah, where your mind makes the decisions.
Yeah, you make the decisions. So, and it's also linked to this thing about Gestalt,
Mhm.
like Fritz, what is his name? Perls, Fritz
Okay.
Perls,
Yeah.
the Gestalt psychologist. That it's we listen. We there's this thing called the ego boundary. You know about it, no?
Mhm.
The ego boundaries means like how we see ourselves existing among things.
Mhm.
So where you see yourself, you you hear and see what you want to hear and what you want to see. So the more you expand your ego boundary and listen to more things and see things that you don't like or that you don't usually see, it expands your mind and it makes you a better human being. But the more reduced your ego boundary is, the more you're self-centered. And this is what caused like those guys over that country are not like us. They have a different religion. That's an ego boundary, you know?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
It's like they're not like me, therefore they're bad. Or they don't believe in the God I believe, therefore they're bad. Or
Yeah.
those gay people are not like us. We're normal and they are not normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then that all becomes very territorial. Everyone
Yes.
starts to set up these manufactured boundaries, these sort of false delineations where one thing stops and another thing starts.
Yeah, where that's a good point way of seeing where do my ego boundary stops and the other one starts?
Yeah.
And how can I make to understand the other side? Well, the only way is mediation, no? To have an opening to see yourself in the body of others.
Mm,
And not only of others, but of other things, of other objects, of other beings, of nature, of like what does it feel to be a bird? What does it feel to be a fruit?
mm, mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of it reminds me that my neighbor kind of broke my heart. I told her, your dog is barking really bad, like, and he's crying all the time. I feel really bad about your dog. And she says, like, I said, I have dogs and I understand. And she says, well, this dog just takes care of my house and I don't care about him. It was
Oh,
like,
no. Oh, that's sad.
just the thing that takes care of my house.
Huh.
Kind of broke my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, because that gets to that highlights that issue that you brought up a little bit ago about turning everything into a object or everything into a commodity. We're only seeing things for their most obvious purpose or their most like directly like definable purpose, maybe.
Yeah, from the point of view of the I or the me.
Yeah. Yes. What can this
Like
be? How can this being serve me?
yes, it goes as deep for me to the
Mhm.
to the Renaissance. Mythos and logos used to
Mm,
have the same weight, no?
mhm.
Like science had the same weight as mythology during the Renaissance. And then logos took over. So now we understand everything through science. So science has become objectification of things.
Mm, mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and also very reductive in so many ways because it's limited to
Reduction, yeah,
the
yeah,
questions
totally.
you can think of to ask, which gets to this idea of perception.
It's like science tells you literally that the furniture in your house or your house itself has no life.
Mm.
That is a dead thing that is there.
Right, right.
And indeed, it has. I mean, I'm just seeing ants crawling all over here. I'm seeing the walls changing in humidity. I'm
Yep.
seeing transformations going on. I mean, everything is moving and everything is alive.
Hmm. And changing and growing and decaying. There's
Exactly.
nothing is stable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and the other thing is the Renaissance religious Catholic Christian thing that the man is the center of the universe. So the man is the center of the picture. You see a picture and everybody sees the man or
Right.
the human, or you hear a symphony and everybody goes to the singer. You forget about the whole symphony.
Hmm. Yeah. Which is why
Yeah,
it's important to really think about what it means to decenter the human from the ways that we're sort of engaging with some of these systems and environments.
yeah. You know what? I talk to my students a lot about. You know Siqueiros, the muralist.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The Mexican he invented this term that is called polycentricity, that the painting has no center.
Huh. Uh-huh.
And then when I started performing with Gomez Peña, we have like 6 stages,
Hmm.
and the people go to the stage that they want.
Oh, nice.
It's like it's even the principle of having a proscenium
Hmm.
in a theater
Yeah.
is very Western. Like if you see a ceremony of the Amazon Indians where they're playing music and singing, it's at horizontal level, and everybody's either a participant or a weird witness of what is going on. You're not there to perceive beauty and clap.
Okay. Sure. So does
You
that
know, self pleasure. You know,
yeah. Is there so there's less hierarchy in that structure, it sounds like.
exactly. This hierarchy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And I see it also when we did a thing with Richard Border Cantos. We realized that we don't use humans. Like rarely Richard photograph any humans, and it's about immigrants.
Right.
So it's just a beautiful poetic way of saying this is what is part of them, you know, and it's left of them, you know. So we start calling it the presence of absence.
Nice. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
nice phrase. Yeah, because they're very present in that work, just not directly, um, but in a way that maybe in the indirectness, it makes it even more meaningful
Yes.
because
Yes.
people can find their own way through it without it
You
being
got it.
yeah.
You entered yourself into the environment. You hear the sounds of the environment, and you're living. So that's the mediation point that we were talking about.
Mm,
Like you're becoming them instead of them being something to look at. You know, if we could have filled pages and pages of photos of immigrants,
yeah.
but that's not the point
No,
because
no.
you still seeing them as the other.
Right. Yeah, that makes you as the viewer uh, reductive in the position of the observer
Exactly.
as opposed to embedded in the experience. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that definitely gets to why that work is so powerful.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's the reason why it became like really powerful. And we talked a lot about it, like tons. It was kind of magical because we're thinking about the same thing exactly.
Nice.
And
Yeah, that
then there's the esoteric part. No, in museums, sometimes I had my sound object, and they told me like, "How is people gonna know that this makes sounds?" I said, "It's making sound already. Can you hear it?" And the curator goes like, "What?" Yeah, it's making sound. Like you're not listening.
yep. Yeah, there's
So the
some
subjectivity of sound also, no?
yeah, how does that play a role in that situation?
Well, it's just an object that is calling you to pay attention
Mm,
instead of saying it's what they do a lot with technology, no? But I call the Coca-Cola vending machine effect.
okay.
You you put you put $2 and you get a Coca-Cola. And what if you put $2 and you get like a monkey. You know, you know, like that thing of is direct expectation of
Right.
things. Like when you go to a concert and you see the program, say, okay, Mahler First Symphony. Okay, it's gonna happen. Okay, there's Mahler First Symphony. Okay, now there's Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Okay, first movement, second movement, third movement.
Yep.
But all of a sudden, there's a thunder, and there's rats coming everywhere, and then the rats become flowers, and you say like, what the heck? Or all of a sudden, the director of the orchestra comes out and say, hey, you know, guys, we should go outside and just like sit in the garden and listen to nature.
Mm.
Say, oh, I paid for my ticket. What's up with this? You know, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
So that's the also the non-linear thinking that I use a lot.
Yeah.
That is to live the moment without expectations and to listen what is there and to be present. So it's what we also forgetting to be present in the moment.
Hmm.
Always like in our pad, like in our phone, or we're never been so disconnected from things. It's basically the connection of things with things, no?
Yeah.
Like if you see, first we had the lute, right? Then we had the guitar.
Yeah.
And then from there we have the harpsichord. You're not even touching the string anymore. You're pressing a button.
Stepping away.
And then after that, we have the piano. That is not even blocking the string, it's hitting the string with a mechanism. And then you have the organ that is not even like hitting any string or touching anything physical. It's electricity translated into, or no, the other organ is wind,
Wind. Yeah.
air, and the other organ is electricity translated into notes. And then what do we have? The computers, no? And so now you see people playing music with their keyboard that you type.
Right.
So how much departure there is between touching a string and playing, how much direct contact you have with one or the other. We're
Mhm.
not having direct contact with things. You see in my school, CCA, you see architects designing bridges and houses in a 3D model. They have never touched the materials. They have never been in the place.
Yep. Yeah, and we see that even throughout other disciplines as well, through art and design, but even I know of like science programs where they learn biology, but they never have to like they're not required to take a field study class, for example. Like they can do their all of their scientific education completely in a classroom environment and not
Yes,
be
yes,
required to like go out into the world and things like that feel like there's a big piece missing then.
yes, yeah, and that goes with my next project. After that, I don't know if I showed a little bit about it. Sonic biogenesis, like how we're genetic engineering is exploring the invisible,
Mm,
and genetic engineering says that we're perfectly understanding nature at a molecular level when we haven't even understand nature at a physical level. So
yeah.
we're so departed from things. We're seeing a computer model of something that is not even understanding something.
Mm, mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and that sort of gets to this notion that you just mentioned of explaining everything down to the molecular level. It feeds into this false premise that we know everything and that
Yes.
science knows everything. And that's sort of a big cultural misperception that we're running into, is like, oh, science said this, and then science learned some more, and now science says that. And that's what science is supposed to do in its sort of best instantiation, is it's supposed to learn how to ask better questions and learn how to sort of perceive things in new and different ways. Culturally, that then becomes almost like ammunition to distrust science, which is
Yeah.
wrong. Which is like the wrong. It's sort of like it's like an inaccurate view of what that process is. But at the same time, there's this layer of elements that may not all be able to be knowable because we don't have ways to measure them. We don't have ways to document them. and that doesn't make them less real or less true as a result.
Well, we're using the brain knowledge and we're forgetting the physical knowledge. I mean, muscles have knowledge, your fingers have knowledge, your eyes, your ears, your hair, everything has not like you learn
Mm,
with your hair, with your touch, with your ears.
mhm.
And we're like leaving everything just to brain knowledge.
Right. Yeah.
We don't feel things.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that comes down to our our need for comfort inside of the limitations of what we can measure easily.
Yeah, what you mean is to feel to feel comfortable with what with to for the science to give us the feel that we're okay and everything is okay and we're on control.
Yes, control. That's it.
Control,
That's it.
control. That
Yep.
we're in control of everything.
Yep.
And literally at the end is what we call being conservative, no?
Yeah.
Like you think that your rules and everything that you believe in is if everything goes the way you want it, you're in control.
Mhm.
But how much in control are we in reality?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question because really the answer is probably not very.
Yeah.
There's outside forces acting on us all the time, whether that's like the physical limitations of maybe this structure that I'm inside of, the socio-political limitations of the job that pays me, my income that affords me the ability to eat and have clothing and things like that, all the way to just the simple interactions with the world where when we're driving on the road, we've all agreed that this painted line is the boundary. But that's a big agreement. That is a that is a massive thing that we've all agreed on. That I'm
Yeah.
gonna stay on this side of that painted line, and you're going to stay on this side of that painted line at 70 miles an hour in opposite directions in 2.5-ton vehicles. Like that is a lot of uh trust in the people who are around us that we sort of take for granted.
Yeah. Yeah. Where are the times that, I mean, now that global warming is coming and all that, I mean, how are we going to survive if electricity is out and if like there's catastrophes everywhere? We don't
Yeah,
even know how to survive in the natural environment anymore.
no, no, and like here, like I'm in the Midwest, and we get storms that knock the power out sometimes. And if somebody's power goes out for 2-3 days, they're done. They're
We're relying in the refrigerator, you know?
exactly, yes, that's exactly it. The refrigerator and the need to have constant power. Similarly, with like the connection to the internet, which you mentioned,
Yes.
it's like it's a similar thing where a connection to the internet has become like an unnecessary part of the scaffolding that we've built up. And just thinking like the other day I was at a store buying a snack and the register was down. They were rebooting the system and they could not sell us, even though like we had cash, like they could not sell us the snack until everything was back up and running because the structure just did not
That's a
allow
good
for it.
point.
And it's like, look, I've got a coffee and some trail mix and a
I
tenant,
know. I know.
you know, like even the most basic sort of exchanges are now fully mediated through.
Yes, you got a really good point. So when I was in Documenta, this creator came to me and I said, I'm very disappointed. I just came back from Munich and there was an exhibit that was all interactive and all technology. And I said, don't worry, just pick up a pick up a hose and throw water into it and it's over.
Oh my gosh. That's that is one of my favorite like little observations that I made in a small thing that I was writing a while back, with some work that I'm doing related to water, which is water is as humans, water is as just organic beings, water is our second most important element.
We are water.
We are water, like breathing and then water, right? Air than water. And then I was thinking, like, we've all got these gadgets, the thing we're talking on, and like one drop of the thing that keeps us alive in the right
And
place
they're dead. Wow,
destroys
that's a
everything. It's
that's a
done,
really good point.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, yeah, it's our lifeblood, and it's a massive destroyer of electronics.
I don't know where I read this, but it's the guy that this like the scientist, I don't remember who, that discovered where like what is 80% or 90% water.
Mm,
That when he said we're not even, he said even the Cardinal of Westminster is 90% water, that they almost like kill him.
wow,
They almost executed the guy.
holy cow,
You don't say that anymore.
yeah, huh.
Or Spinoza, no, that deals between the situation between what is mind and what is matter.
Okay,
Like Spinoza got a lot of trouble with the Jewish traditional community for saying that we are as much mind as we are matter.
huh. Oh, I'm
It was
listening.
very revolutionary. It changed the way of thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, because it starts to it starts to break down those boundaries again.
And it puts you together with the animal kingdom,
Hmm.
like it's almost saying like we're animals too, and we're part of all of these. And
Right.
it's kind of like the way of seeing things from the Catholic Church, or the male-based capitalistic vertical way of seeing things is we're above everything else, and all of this is to serve us.
Hmm. Yep. And then we
And
try to
we're bigger than all of these. We're bigger than the animals and the plants. They should be subjected to us.
mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we think we should be in control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then you got a couple guys that goes to the Himalayas. There's a windstorm and they're dead, like
Yeah.
big deal.
Yep. Yeah, the Neil deGrasse Tyson has a thing that he talks about in response to the idea that some people have of Earth being this perfect environment for humans. The idea that Earth was perfectly designed for humans to be here. And Neil deGrasse Tyson has this response where he's like, no, no, it doesn't. 85% of this planet, if I drop you naked there, you're dead. Done.
Yes.
It is not. It is not for us. And that's a lot of what design has done. And that's a lot of what engineering has done, is tried to help us basically like stay alive longer, to oversimplify. And then that has now taken all of these sort of like dramatic turns where instead of us utilizing our creative mind to remain involved in the system, we've instead taken this position of trying to make these systems subordinate to us.
And not only our creative mind, I would say our physical mind,
Yes.
our body as knowledge, no? Every single part of our body has knowledge.
Hmm.
We're learning through our body, not only through our mind. We think that we only learn through our mind, but we learn through everything.
Hmm.
Even the temperature changes that get to your body, you're learning something from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very true. Yep. Especially in nature, especially in what we sort of like consider the exterior world. All of those things become inputs, and we sort of reduced it down to these like primary senses, but we also have
Yes.
all these other things that we haven't necessarily put a name on it, different aspects of proprioception and things like that, where all this other sort of embodied knowledge builds up in these different ways of embodied listening.
Embodied listening. Good quote.
Yeah,
Embodied listening. You got it. You got one really good quote there.
nice.
Because yeah, now that since we started with prosopopeia, and then we're objects too. We're like part of the sound objects in the world, or perceiving objects, or to the outside and to the inside. No, we're absorbing and we're giving.
Hmm.
If
Absorb.
you're touching the wall is touching you too.
Hmm.
You're touching an insect. You touch a plant, and the plant is touching you.
Yeah, the chemistry changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did like these exercises with David Abram, like touching like different textures of plants, like the leaves and everything, and the bark. And I never, it was very interesting because you're living with these things and you never go and touch it, and see how it feels and
Mm.
see what the patterns are and why is it like that and what happened. And
Yeah.
I was talking with this naturalist, and he said that the best thing you can do at the moment with this urban society is a Native American naturalist person. And he said that the best thing you can do is learn about where you live, the environment, even if you live in an urban environment, see what birds they are, what trees there are, what is the sound environment, what is the sonic environment, what kind, how does the water arrive there, what is the water doing? You know that we barely know, like even like what kind of insects are in our home and what they are doing there and what they feed from and all of that.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's that disconnect where like we could have a lesson in any square meter of any space that we.
Yes, yes, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And is this literally like cognitive science also? It has to do a lot with cognitive. How do you learn,
Mm-hmm.
and what do you learn with, and what do you listen to, and what do you look at?
Yeah, which I think we would all do better to be listening and learning more.
Yes,
Yeah.
it doesn't take too much, it just like takes the consciousness of starting to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we just need a small reminder once in a while because
Yes,
the system doesn't encourage that
no,
everywhere we are. But we can. We as individuals, we as community members, we as communities, we can we can do things to encourage that. And I think that's part of what's beautiful about the realm of art and performance and these different types of engagements, whether it's a workshop or a performance or a pre-recorded piece or whatever, is it has these opportunities to engage people. And it's one of the things that I loved about your performance when you were describing sort of like the reaching out and the connecting. That was how I felt your performance was when I got a chance to see it at the university where I'm at, because you were in a space where you were in the center of a space. Everyone was free to move around. There was a second level people could see from above, people could see from the same level that you were standing on. People were encouraged to come up and look closely or step back and hear the channels from different spaces. And it just really felt like a big collective experience as opposed to a singular observed event. And I think that was really powerful.
yeah, yeah, you're totally right. As I told you, like the idea of the proscenium and the artist as the center of something, or the human or the man as center of things is too old. It's, it's not going to work. It hasn't worked, and it's not going to work. I mean, if we need to, like I said, no, like if we want, I mean, this boat is sinking, and if
Yeah.
we don't connect horizontally without hierarchy, we have to all do something
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
If humanity is going to be gone,
Yeah. I just was
because nature is going to keep going. Nature is bigger than us.
oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's what I grew up with the saying in my family, which was during kind of the height of like the save the planet, like the 1970s, 1980s. Uh the message that we learned in my house growing up was the planet's going to be fine. It's just a matter of
Yeah,
whether humans
that's
are
the
going
thing.
to be here or not. So really, we should say like save,
Save the humans.
yeah, yep. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
Or I don't know if it's worth to save the humans. Maybe it's not.
I don't know. I mean, maybe maybe that's the direction we're going is we're just unraveling. Not to be like a not to be too doomsday about it, but maybe we've decided that our natural progression is to remove ourselves from from some of the structures, or we will have the ability to get over and recognize some of the cognitive dissonance that we've introduced, and
Um,
and
nice.
make start making the big decisions that are going to need to be made in the face of the climate crisis.
Yeah, I think I read a quote the other day. I think it was Einstein that said that um, not even not even a rat would. When have you seen a rat building a house trap, a mouse trap relating to like the atomic bomb? No? It's like a mouse designing a mouse trap,
Yep.
the atomic bomb.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really poignant analog. Huh. Cool.
But anyways,
Yeah.
hope this helps.
Oh, this has been great. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep. Um, yeah, so thanks so much for taking the time to chat today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm super glad we got to catch up.
Nice to see you. Nice to
Oh,
hear
it's
you.
so great to hear you
Nice to feel you.
Absolutely. All right. Yes. Have a good rest of your trip, and
Okay.
I look forward to the next time we can connect. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.